just struck two Iranian-linked locations in eastern Syria. That, U.S. says, is in retaliation for attacks against U.S. personnel. A new statement from Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin says that these were what the U.S. is calling self-defense strikes. They describe them as precision self-defense strikes against two facilities in eastern Syria. These are against what the U.S. officials describe as Iranian-backed forces, Iranian-backed attacks against U.S. forces. And the statement from Secretary Austin says they are unacceptable and must stop. Iran wants to hide its hand and deny its role in these attacks against our forces. We will not let them. Joining us on the phone is Gabe Gutierrez from Washington, who has been following this for us. He is senior White House correspondent. Gabe, thank you so much for being with us on such short notice. What do we know at this hour about these strikes and what they may mean about the U.S.'s military posture in that region?
Well, hi there, Jake. Well, as you said, the statement coming out just a short time ago from the Defense Secretary, and it comes as the U.S. military, there have really been rising tensions in the region over the war in Israel. And the Defense Secretary called the attacks separate and distinct from that ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. But the reality, Jake, is that as tensions have been rising in the region, there has been an uptick in these types of attacks against U.S. facilities. And while the U.S. has said that it does not believe that Iran was directly responsible or gave the green light for the Hamas terrorist attack against Israel, it has been saying that Iran is broadly complicit for funding Hamas and also other proxies really throughout the region. And President Biden has repeatedly warned other actors throughout the region not to exploit this situation. So again, this comes at a time between October 17th and the 24th, U.S. and coalition forces were attacked at least 10 separate times in Iraq, 3 times in Syria, by a mix of drones and rockets, according to the Pentagon. And on October 18th, at least 2 one-way attack drones targeted a military base in southern Syria. And on the same day, there were also 2 separate drone attacks against U.S. and coalition forces stationed at a U.S. base in western Iraq. So again, these launched strikes come as retaliation for that, basically warning Iran and its proxies to back off, Jake.
And Gabe, in the statement from Secretary Austin, he specifically mentions the attacks you are describing, that series of attacks in Iraq and Syria, and it specifically, of course, names Iran as the backer of the proxy forces that it says carried out these attacks. It also, his statement also mentions the U.S. personnel, one of whom died of a cardiac event while taking shelter during one of the attacks. It was unrelated to the actual danger from the attacks, other than that it happened contemporaneously with it. And then it mentions that 21 U.S. personnel suffered minor injuries, but all have since returned to duty. Considering just how much death and destruction we have been looking at around the Israel-Hamas war, it is striking to me, and I wonder what you make of this, just how fiercely the United States seems to be striking back in response to something that has, even it says in its statement here, involves minor injuries. What does that suggest to you about the level of tolerance the U.S. has for violence directed at its personnel and its facilities in the region?
Well, look, that statement does describe it as minor injuries, but at least some of those were reported to be traumatic brain injuries. So some discussion about how minor they are, in fact. But Jake, this is something that for the past several days we've been hearing just kind of more stronger talk from the White House, and even just earlier today, National Security Spokesman John Kirby. I'm reading, looking through a transcript really quickly, and he basically said we're going to do what we have to do to protect troops in our facilities, and he basically said that as Commander-in-Chief, that's the president's decision to make, and he'll make it in a, quote, time and manner of his own choosing. So that statement came just several hours ago, perhaps telegraphing what the president may, the decision he was about to make. And again, we're just now getting the statement from the defense secretary that, in fact, U.S. military forces conducted what are described, the statement says, as self-defense strikes on those two facilities in eastern Syria. So certainly huge developments, but potentially this, has larger implications for the future of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Even though this statement says that this is separate and distinct from that, but this does not happen in a vacuum, Jake. Tensions across the region are extremely high, and the Biden administration is really scrambling to prevent this from becoming a wider war. That's why they, sent those carrier strike groups to the region. And over the last several days, we've been hearing about these increased attacks on U.S. and coalition forces. So, in some sense, it was a matter of time between when those attacks were happening against U.S. forces in the region and when the U.S. would have to respond. The question now is, how does Iran respond to this? And does this risk a further escalation, given that tensions are already so high between Israel, Hamas, and also the concerns about the growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, but now does this, develop into a wider war, which the Biden administration has said that it certainly wants to avoid.
Senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joining us now. Again, U.S. forces have struck two facilities in eastern Syria in what it describes as a self-defense action in retaliation for repeated strikes against U.S. military personnel and facilities.
That's it on that, man. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Wakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS. Shalom to the whole for elect, preaching this word in truth and sincerity. And to you ribs, to you sisters out there, learning silence and staying in order. Right, as you saw, things are starting to heat up, man. And I say this all the time, but it's an exciting thing, to see the downfall and the decline of society, the comfort of the people is waxing old. People are losing faith in this kingdom, and that's a good thing. These nations now are not afraid of the big boogeyman anymore, right? The scriptures talked about let the weak say I'm strong. Everybody's now grown, no longer in middle school. The bully didn't grow much in the next 5 years. When you turn 18, that bully isn't so big anymore. So these nations are flexing their new muscle, so to speak, and are getting ready to put the hammer down on Esau. Their pride, Edomite's pride, is going to cause them to enter a suicide mission. Right, but Yahweh Hashem Yahushua made it that way. We are knocking on the third woe's doorstep. This is Revelations chapter 11, verse 14. The second woe is past, right? That's World War II. World War I and World War II are already past. You see, everything's happening within 100 years of themselves. This is pretty quick in the eyes of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. It says, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And we see it. What was that guy's name? Albert Pike was a decorated third-degree Mason who has a statue in Washington. And he himself was quoting all three wars before they even happened, and it's basically coming according to plan, because that man has a statue in Washington, right? He was a really decorated, smart guy. To have a statue put up about yourself in Washington means something. So it's no coincidence whether this man was fictional or not, how it was written before all three wars and it's going according to exact plan. Right? Look up Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma, I believe it's called. Right? This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 24, verse 6. Wherefore, thus said Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, power, woe to the bloody city, to the pot whose scum is therein. Right? This is considered the melting pot Babylon here. Right? And everybody in here is scum. And whose scum is not gone out of it. Right? You still here. You know, there's people, there's scum trying to, come to this pot, a scum bucket. This is a scum bucket, and we got people wanting to come in here, man, like crabs in a bucket, right? And whose scum is not gone out of it. Bring it out piece by piece, let no lot fall upon it. Verse 7, for her blood is in the midst of her. Right, because Gad got trampled over, destroyed, and a bunch of atrocities. Man, the blood crieth out from the ground to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai for the atrocities that this man had put forth. Right, for her blood is in the midst of her, and she set it up on top of a rock. Right, she was proud of it. She poured not onto the ground, right? She didn't try to dig it up, put it underneath so nobody could know, right? To cover it with dust. And this is why it's so easy to reveal the man of sin. Because Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai made it for his records, could be found in the later days. Right, verse 8, that it might cause fury to come upon to take vengeance. Right, a lot of people are furious with the things that this place has committed, and the other nations know and are getting ready to pounce on this nation for the atrocities that is done across the entire earth. Man, it says that it might cause fury to come to take vengeance. I have set her blood upon the top of a rock, that it should not be covered. Therefore, thus said Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, power, woe to the bloody city. I will even make the pile for fire great. Verse 10, heap on wood, kindle the fire, consume the flesh, and spice it well, and let the bones be burned. Man, this place is nothing but a big incense holder. It's a sacrificial temple, for fire. Right, verse 11, then set it empty upon the coal thereof, that the brass of it may be hot and may burn, and that the filthiness of it may be molten in it, that the scum of it may be consumed. Man, this place is gonna burn for a very long time. It's a scary thing, man, to fall in the hands of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. To know that you have a death threat coming to you, Esau. Your days are numbered. They're going to be shortened for the elect's sake. Right? And that's what we're hoping for. The downfall of this place, man. Call all Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, and double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS. And with that, I'm going to say Shalom.